What is up, Nerd Nation? It's your boy Hunter here for Film Nerd TV, and this is a special review for you guys because this is the start of Halloween horror reviews on my channel. One horror movie every week, a review, and I'm here with Russell Howell. How's it going, man?
Good, man. Glad to be a part of the horror festivities, and yeah, it was something I wanted to get a part of, and I'm glad we're here to talk about this film. It was nice to revisit it last night, so looking forward to talking about it.
And the movie we're reviewing today is 1996 Scream, directed by Wes Craven. So just give your thoughts on Scream, like your second watch through, what you noticed about it, stuff like that.
I remember seeing this movie in 1996 when it came out in theaters.
I wasn't even born yet.
I was 13, so I remember a young me went and saw it with my dad, and I just remember I was always gravitated towards horror films, but I didn't realize that the essential importance that this film would actually play, setting the table for the decade to come for horror films, because we were kind of in a weird spot with horror movies. We were out, Nightmare on Elm Street. We were pretty much out, not out, but we were like not what are the words? It was something new, and it was something that was innovative enough, and it paid homage to the Nightmare on Elm Street from 1984 to kind of a new generation to pave for horror movies, and that was such the importance of this film. And just coming, I've seen it so many times, but it was just nice to revisit it. And it's funny, and I'll talk about this during the review, but yeah, this movie was just so influential in the way that horror movies were made hereafter. And I thought that, 1996 Scream still holds up, and it's still a classic.
Yeah, I agree. As someone who, this was my first movie in horror, like my, what do you call it? Introductory.
Yeah, your introduction to horror films.
Yeah. And when I saw it, I was like, oh, this is really cool. Maybe I should dive in more.
Yeah.
But what I noticed about it is Scream still holds up today because they have references of all-time classic horror movies. And the way that it takes the horror genre and turns it on its head. Especially.
Well, yeah. No, for sure. And what it's doing is it's pretty much celebrating all the groundwork that was laid before it. With John Carpenter, with Halloween, with Wes Craven's 1984 Elm Street, with even mentions of Prom Night and other horror classics that were in that whole entire,
Psycho was referenced.
With Psycho, with Psycho and all that other stuff,
Yeah.
Even a callback from 1960 Psycho, Alfred Hitchcock. But anything in general, it's nice just to see him pave the way to kind of help introduce younger audiences like yourself. Because, I mean, I was already watching scary movies. Like, I grew up watching, like, Freddy Krueger and stuff like that. So, I mean, now that I see it with an older set of eyes, I appreciate it more than I did when I saw it when I was 13, because I really didn't know. I mean, I knew the references and stuff like that, but I see it more now because I've seen more of these. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've experienced more of it. So that's the greatest thing about film. You can always go back at certain junctures of your life and kind of revisit films, and you get more out of it with a new set of eyes, so to speak.
Yeah, without a doubt. So a little background on this movie, how it was made. This was based on the Gainesville Ripper, I believe, out in Florida. A dude on a college campus murdered a few teenage girls, and their heads were found as trophies in their dorm rooms. Kevin Williamson, the guy who wrote the screenplay for it, said he was house sitting for a buddy of his and was following the news story as it was happening. Got the idea for Scream, went up and started writing the screenplay for it right there. But it was known as the original title was Scary Movie, and they got changed to Scream later on.
That's funny because then they later spoofed it in Scary Movie.
Yeah, exactly.
It was kind of funny.
So that's a little background on how the movie was made itself. I love watching documentaries about stuff like this.
Yeah.
Like how movies were made, like how they got the ideas and all that stuff.
Yeah, and the funny thing about this film, you had a couple actresses in the film with Neve Campbell and Courtney Cox who actually got their start with television shows. She was in Party of Five, and I think, Courtney Cox was still in Friends at the time when this came out. So it's kind of nice to see two TV show build actresses kind of headline this movie too.
Yeah, and at first, which we'll actually get to the movie in a second, but Wes Craven was thinking about hiring. No, I'm sorry, Kevin Williamson was going to hire Drew Barrymore to play the main lead of Cindy.
Mm-hmm.
Wes Craven was the one who wanted to put her in the beginning because Drew Barrymore was a big name during the 90s. They were like, oh, she's going to be in the movie for, till the end. She's going to be the main lead. And then when she gets killed off, it turns it all on its head.
Yeah, and I remember watching that being surprised because I remember Drew Barrymore, obviously in the 90s, was a big name. She was a big name in the early 80s, like with E.T. and then thereafter, obviously. But yeah, she's a big name, and the fact that she makes it 10 minutes into the movie, not even.
Yeah. So let's get into the actual movie. So we open up with high school student Casey Becker, I believe her last name is.
Casey Becker,
yeah. Yeah, so she's home alone. She's out in the woods. And she gets this phone call from a guy. She thinks it's the wrong number, so she's like, okay, bye-bye. The phone keeps calling, and you realize it's a deadly game. Like, the dude's asking her questions. He's nice, and then when she starts hanging up too many times, I think he says, you hang up on me one more time, I'll gut you like a fish.
Mm-hmm.
And, which that's an iconic line right there, too. Like,
yeah,
out in the open.
Oh, no, yeah, for sure.
So, like, this whole scene is really, it's shot really well, too. I believe this is, like, 1 or 2 shots, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like it. It might have been more, but it just feels like it's, like, one continuous shot throughout the house, which I really love.
Yeah, and it's the simplistic things like that Wes Craven, was so, well known for. And it's just the simplicity of, his shots in the film. It really just kind of, it's more personal. You're in the kitchen with her making popcorn. You're in there, what I mean? That first person feel to it. And I think that's why the movie just works on that aspect, because you're in the scene with her,
Yeah. And then this is obviously where the line, what's your favorite scary movie, comes from when he asked her. And then it calls back to A Nightmare on Elm Street with Freddy, the guy with the claws, which, again, the line I love is, like, after the first one, it just, like, got so dumb I stopped watching it.
Yeah, that's because that was the movie that she guessed that was his favorite movie, because hers was Halloween.
Halloween.
Yeah.
Michael Myers and the babysitter.
But it's nice to it's nice, again, a nice callback to movies of the past, and I just thought that was a nice little Easter egg to throw in there.
Yeah. So then you meet the boyfriend Steve, who is tied up outside the porch. I'm gonna be kind of skipping through a lot of the scenes, but so the boyfriend ended up murdered, and then Casey escapes the house but gets caught. She gets I believe she gets stabbed, right?
She gets stabbed in the in the upper chest, and then she gets stabbed. Yeah. And just to call back real quick, the other thing I appreciate about this film was the questions that the movie trivia questions that he was asking in the film. About the killer in Halloween. Oh yeah, Michael Myers. And it's funny because, like, if you're shooting a gun like that, and he said the killer in Friday the 13th, everyone's gonna say Jason,
but it's not.
But you realize Jason's mom was the killer in the first one. He didn't get his
Pamela,
and he wasn't in the film until actually the second one.
Yep.
And it's one of those ones where it's one of those ones where it's like, man, you go back to it, it's such beautiful screenwriting. It's just such such great, just even like a simple scene like that, just really shows the broad caliber that Craven was going for in this film, and even with Kevin Williamson writing the film. It just everything on this movie just kicks in full cylinder, 4 cylinders the whole entire time.
Yeah, and especially this opening scene to start off strong like this with, you just come right out the gate with it. And especially, like, Drew Barrymore did incredible for the 10 minutes she was on screen. You really felt that she was terrified running through the house, make sure all the doors were locked. And she forgot the back door. It's like something trivial like that your brain, you're sitting home like, oh, I remember the back door, but would you actually remember to lock all the doors?
Especially that house had like 8,000 windows in it too. That's the thing that bothered me. Like, I always was like, I was so amused by how many windows this house had.
Yeah,
the windows. And it was like, literally, seriously, you could see that house from every angle.
Yeah, you could.
The scene that bothered me is the scene where her parents are pulling in the driveway at the beginning, and she can't yell or scream because she's been like strangled, like he like choked or whatever.
Mm.
My thing was, why didn't she just throw the phone up there? They would have heard the noise and then looked back. Little things that I think of, because she still has the phone in her hand, obviously. That's when her parents can hear her being killed. I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I'm like, man, like I'm just trying to think of things that if the character I wish they were thinking. She can't talk, but she could have thrown the phone when they were coming
Yeah.
up. The parents would have seen that.
Yeah, I get that. But again, nitpicks.
Yeah, oh yeah,
But,
no. But that's just a what it, like wish the character would have done it, you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. But then after he stabs her, she's it's cuts to her being hung by a tree. And then what I like is the fast camera panning
Fast
into the opening.
right door, yeah.
Yep. So it's like the camera is like zooming in real fast, pans into the opening title, Scream, and then immediately starts with Cindy on her laptop. So then she's in a room. Her dad has to go on a business meeting, I believe, or he's going out of town.
Which you will not see him for a long time in the movie.
Yeah. But then in comes her boyfriend Billy, played by Skeet Ulrich, which I know him from Riverdale and Scream because he's the dad in Riverdale also.
Yeah, he was big for a minute. I remember he was in different movies there in the mid '90s. He was one of those guys that kind of fell by the wayside. Because right after this film, because he was in like As Good as It Gets, and he was in like the Newton Boys and Chill Factor and stuff like that, and he kind of just disappeared after that. After the first Scream.
Yeah. So then, you get this whole dialogue between Sydney and Billy talking about, I guess, if I remember correctly, it's like virginity.
It's more about like pretty much their relationship status and like where are they? Because obviously they're teenagers, or they're in that phase, hormones are going crazy, and he kind of wants to take it to the next level, but he feels that she is more reserved. And so she pretty much kind of says, pretty much puts him on a PG-13 rating and shows him shows her chest to him before he leaves and goes out the window.
That was a funny line because he was like PG-13, does the shot, and then he's like, you tease, and then like he leaves.
Yeah, and it's funny because like you could legit, it's funny how, again, it's the writing, it's the simplicity of the writing. That's so relatable, and it's relatable for any generation. Like that stuff just is constantly happening, like just dialogue and stuff like that in general. Like it hasn't aged,
Yeah, this is one of the few times that someone could write teenage dialogue like teenagers would talk during the 90s, and it doesn't feel old or repetitive listening to it today.
Yeah, like in the 70s or 80s, you watch movies, you're like, like
that sounds like 70s dialogue.
Yeah, but honestly, it's like watching this from '96, even 22 years later, and you're like, yeah, people still, it's not out of character to hear that is the thing, and that's why it's still relevant.
Yeah, without a doubt. So then we go into the school where you have Cindy and what's her name, Tatum.
Tatum, yeah, played by good old
Rose McGowan.
Rose McGowan before she was for Charmed fame. And before, also, little sidebar, she also dated Marilyn Manson at one time, too. A little fun fact.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
That's a little weird.
It's a little fun fact. Little random stuff.
But, so they're at the college. They just heard the news media about Casey's murder. But then we cut into, I think, her in class, right? And then she gets called into the principal's office, which the principal is played by the font himself.
Henry Winkler.
Yep. Which, that's like perfect casting because it didn't require a lot of screen time, but when he was on screen, you could tell he was having just so much fun playing this character.
Yeah, and it was nice to see him back in a actually a kind of like not a big role, but a bigger role at the time. Because keep in mind, after Happy Days, he kind of fell off the grid, and that was right also a couple years before he did The Waterboy with Adam Sandler, because I think that was in like 1999, 2000. ish or 98, I think. But yeah, so we pretty much see him pretty much kind of calling the kids in to try to figure out what the hell's going on, like what's going on, and kind of enabling or not enabling, but kind of like trying to drive a curfew for students and stuff like that to try to keep everybody safe.
Yep. So then we go into well, we learn about that it's the anniversary of her mother's murder by Cotton Weary, or we think it's Cotton Weary. And then
played by good old Liev Schreiber.
Liev Schreiber, yep. And then we go into Sydney's home. She's home alone. She's talking with Tatum on the phone.
Yeah.
Which this is good, like teen girl dialogue back here, like talking about like Tom Cruise and what movie they were talking about. I just forgot.
There's one scene where you can see his penis. Apparently, I forgot. I can't think of the movie. She's talking about it because they want to hang out and do pretty much like a girls' night.
Yeah,
all the right moves.
All right moves. Yeah.
And they're kind of talking about like getting together later on, and that's when like kind of Sydney, I think she falls asleep and ends up waking up later at night.
Yeah, it's like midnight. It's after midnight, and so Tatum calls. She'll be right there, and then she gets another call, and it's our killer, Ghostface. Or she don't know this killer, but he pretty much does the exact same thing in the opening. He starts off nice, and then he goes, if you hang up, you'll end up dead like your mother, or something like that, right?
Yeah, keep it up, you'll end up like your mother, or whatever.
Yeah, so that's when she starts getting worried. Oh, sorry. So this is where the Ghostface shows up for the first time on screen with the actual mask. So I don't think he showed up in the opening, did he?
No, yeah, he showed. He was a Ghostface killer in the first one because it ends the scene with Drew Barrymore looking up at him and taking his mask.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Sorry, I watched it last week and I had to watch a lot of stuff. But
he was wearing a mask because even in that scene when he turns around real fast in the window.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
He's wearing it though, yeah. But it's the first time now in the modern storyline
that we see Ghostface.
See him as opposed to, before, after killing
Casey.
Yeah.
So then she's attacked by the Ghostface killer, which the line that they brought up that I love that they brought back is when he asked, "What's your favorite scary movie?" And she's like, I don't watch that stuff. He goes, "Oh, why not?" She's like, "Because it's always some big-breasted dummy who goes upstairs instead of
walking out the front door."
Yeah, front door. And then when the killer comes in, she tries to go out the front door, can't get open, and runs right upstairs.
Yeah, but she was trying to go to the front door, like she said. So we see in this film that she's already smarter of a main character than in most horror films. And that's another thing that obviously plays a big key into her, obviously the success of her as a character, obviously moving forward to Scream 2, Scream 3, Scream 4,
Yeah. So then we, after he flees, you see Billy come up the window. He's hugging her, and then all of a sudden, a phone drops out of his pocket.
Your first indication that this guy might be the killer, like you don't know, obviously, but it's suspicious.
Yeah, and I actually like that they kind of stuck with it, and like kind of like they gave you other suspects without making it seem too obvious that it was him.
The thing I love the most, and I go back to it, anything Randy says is to the T what happens, what's going on.
Randy is my favorite character.
Mine too. Yeah.
My favorite horror character of all time because he understands horror movies.
Yeah, Randy was my favorite in Scream, and I hated Scream 2 when he got killed. But anyway, anything he says, and it's funny now listening to it. Anything he said, especially in a video story when he was talking about it, like. Well, I mean, I guess we'll kind of talk about that later. We're jumping back and forth, but
that's fine.
That scene where he goes, Sydney's dad's the red herring, meaning he's the person that you're gonna think is the killer, but he's not.
Mm-hmm.
And anything that Randy has said is dead on. He goes, I
Yep.
think it's probably the boyfriend, and obviously at that time it's going to be Skeet Ulrich's character, Billy.
Yeah.
But
Spoilers, by the way. I didn't
yeah,
bring this up. This is 22 years old, so
yeah.
you know.
Oh yeah, but anything that Randy says in this movie is dead on. You know what
Mm-hmm.
happens, and I love the fact that obviously people think that, oh well, he might be the killer because he's just so engrossed in the horror genre. Why not? What better way to pay homage to the horror genre than being the killer yourself? And I remember watching this film 22 years ago, jumping around. Oh, who's the killer? Oh, it might be him. It might be this guy. Oh, it might be the principal because the principal's putting a mask on. Oh,
Yeah.
it might be Dewey's boss because he has the same type of boots. And you're constantly thinking about different characters
Mm-hmm.
that could potentially be the killer in the film. You even thought there was a time, oh, it might even be Dewey. There's
Yeah.
constantly thinking, and in a certain part of that movie, that's the beauty about this movie. The guessing, it really leaves you on the edge of your seat.
Mm-hmm.
In that suspense, trying to figure out who the killer is, try to tie it up, and obviously the payoff at the end. But yeah,
The payoff is great.
oh, and I love, and the other thing I really loved, there was a scene in the high school where Henry Winkler's character goes out to the hall, and we see a guy in a
The Nightmare on Elm Street.
striped sweater, just he's wearing Freddy Krueger's sweater.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, sorry, Fred. And because that's the guy, the janitor.
Fun fact: that was actually Wes Craven in costume. He couldn't find an extra, so he put it on himself and was doing the character.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, that makes sense that he did a callback to his 1984 film, classic
Yep.
film. So yeah, that was funny to see that. And then I also liked how they even kind of like meshed the two guys together. Because I think Tatum or somebody was talking about the movie, and they were like, "Oh yeah, isn't that Wes Carpenter guy?" Kind of mixing Wes Craven,
John Carpenter,
which I thought was kind of cool because we obviously know that Wes Craven and John Carpenter had such a good relationship together.
Yeah,
because they're they're not the pioneers of the horror genre, but they really helped gravitate.
They made horror
genre in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, they made the horror genre what it is today.
Yeah, those are they're like the founding fathers of it. I get obviously like Frankenstein and Dracula and like Dr. Caligari and like Nosferatu and the horror classics like that really helped pave the way in the 20s and 30s and stuff like that. But we see the more, to make it more modern, we needed the baton to be passed, and it was passed to Wes Craven. It was passed to John Carpenter.
Wes Craven took the idea of horror monsters like Frankenstein, like Dracula, like the Wolfman, and really made it. What would it be like today?
Yeah, and that's a theme in his movies, though. The theme in his movies is always a group of kids have to battle out against an entity or a being. Nightmare on Elm Street was a group,
which they actually bring up in this movie, in the video store, when he's like, most of these movies, it's usually teens who have to fight the monster. When Randy,
and that's anything that Wes Craven does, it's like that. That's the kind of the premise of it. Like My Soul to Take, a group of teens. Nightmare on Elm Street, a group of high schoolers battling Freddy Krueger. Scream, a bunch of high schoolers battling Ghostface. That's the theme. Is always the kids are pinned up against the wall against another being or an entity, and they have to come together to try to defeat evil. And it's simplistic, but it's beautiful. Wes Craven.
Yeah, one actor and character that we didn't give enough respect to, and I want to give this guy a mention. Matthew Lillard as Stu was perfect.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that like after that his career really never took off, because I'm not going to give credit. I mean, Scooby-Doo is just awful.
I agree. Both are awful.
But what I'm saying is, him as a character, we really saw the psychotic scene of this, like, well, obviously the back end of the film, but the psychotic scene of him, the range of emotion that he plays, the range of character that he plays. He goes from being the goofball to obviously, one half of the duo, the killing duo. So like, it's really, he really stepped out because you see movies after that, like he really never landed after that. Like he was in Summer Catch with Freddie Prinze Jr., Scooby-Doo. He was constantly in things that just never held up.
And what sucks is because like in Scream, you could really tell his acting range, and he just didn't pick movies that showed off his range.
And Skeet Ulrich was the same way. He was a product of that too, because he fell off the map. I mentioned a couple movies like As Good as It Gets, but he was a small role. And those other films that I had mentioned, a couple other ones, the
Most of this cast actually didn't really do much after Scream.
I think pretty much the most successful careers out of them were probably Courtney Cox, obviously for Friends,
And David Arquette, probably.
David Arquette, and then even Nev Campbell, because she's still, even though she was in those Scream movies, like she came back in with Skyscraper with The Rock, so she's still kind of back there. But she's always showed that she's a good actress. But,
I mean, Jamie Kennedy kind of went downhill after this too.
Which sucks because, like I said, he's my favorite in this film. And after
this, he had Malibu's Most Wanted.
Yeah.
So like,
yeah, he fell off, but
he fell off really bad.
Yeah, for sure. But we're at pretty much
the party.
Are we at the party now?
Yeah, because this is like right after the killer leaves. No, we are actually skipping. Billy ends up being held in the cell for a day.
Oh yeah, because they feel that's right. Because they feel that there isn't enough evidence, obviously, to
hold him,
but there's enough to just hold him overnight. They're just kind of hold him because it is suspicious. They also want to get the cell phone records to make sure that Billy Loomis's phone isn't the one that has been used in contacting Casey Becker and or Sydney. Yeah.
Which again, callback. I'm not sure if this is a callback or not, but his last name is Loomis. Maybe a tie to
Loomis
Sam
from Halloween. It is. It plays homage to Sam Loomis from Halloween. Donald Pleasance's character. Yeah.
That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah. It does.
So I mean, a lot of callbacks in this movie to like horror, like great movies, but so where Billy comes back to school, him and Cindy have a talk about, Cindy, it's been a year, you know, my mom left my dad, but it's been a year, you know, you got to kind of get over it. She says it's not the same thing, which it's not.
It's completely not. Yeah, he's trying to relate it to kind of basically saying our moms are both out of the picture. There's a difference though.
Yeah.
Like, his mom can see his mom whenever, she can't. So I think again that's the kind of
which she actually brings up. She was like, your mom moved out. My mom's in a coffin somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, which I mean, obviously, and I guess it's just kind of like Billy kind of just being immature at the time, not really knowing how to relate to a situation like that, and that just shows the immaturity of the character. And again, that's high school, so
Yeah, I mean, it's not aimed to make Billy the bad guy. It's just he doesn't know how to relate the situations and talk to her about it.
Yeah.
So then now we're at the party. So they all get together for a party hosted by Stu. And then this is where Tatum dies, correct?
Yeah, that's where Tatum goes. That's right before they. That's right when Randy's given the do's and don'ts of the scary movie.
Yeah, which is like he's like, don't have sex,
and don't drink or do drugs.
Don't drink or do drugs. And this is kind of the weird part, though. He's like, don't drink or do drugs, and then he immediately takes a sip of beer.
Yeah, which is kind of funny because now it's like, okay, so that basically means that anybody is pretty much up for grabs right now. Because everybody's partaking in drinking. We know that people are, probably off going to having sex or whatever like that. And then
of course, the infamous, I'll be right back. And then Stu gets up. Hey, man, you want beer? Yeah. I'll be right back.
Yeah. So, like, yeah, that scene there is just kind of iconic with the film, too. And it just shows that, and obviously they're sitting down watching the 1970s Halloween. So that's a nice callback again. And basically just, the horror genre in general. There's constant callbacks from different films in there.
And then, of course, you get into the Jamie Lee's breast talk, and then he's like, Total Recall, like she was always the virgin in horror movies, which, I mean, if you really look at it, she has been.
Yeah, because because her character really was big. Jamie Lee Curtis was huge after, obviously,
Halloween.
But yeah, her character was always the more conservative type character. She was always like the good girl, and that's why Laurie Strode was obviously the good girl in Halloween. And it was that purity. It's that purity, obviously, about virginity, being a virgin, and virgin, virgins always come through in the horror movies, and that's why Laurie Strode's character obviously made it in Halloween.
Yep. So then, of course, Tatum goes down to the garage to get the beers out of the fridge. Which, why would you have the beers in the garage?
Well, but you know what? Honestly, though, I know some people that have refrigerators in the
yeah.
garage. But the biggest gripe of this film is, okay, so we're confronted by we see the Ghostface killer again. So we see Tatum, good old Rose McGowan, kind of like thinking it's all part of a prank, like somebody's playing a prank. Oh yeah, blah blah blah. Are you looking for, basically, are you looking something basically?
Which the line is like, you want to play Psycho Killer?
Yeah, and then then he nods his head, yeah. Well, then she realizes once he cuts her arm. Obviously this guy's not playing around, and
Yeah.
she throws beer bottles at him. But the most unrealistic part of this, and I just wish we could do away with this and do it a different way, was the whole escaping through the garage door thing.
Yeah.
That thing never would have held the weight, even if, because she's not heavy, but even in general, anytime you would hang down on that thing would not have held the weight, especially when you're going up higher and higher where the weight's more. There's no way that garage door would have held, and it wouldn't have snapped her. It wouldn't have snapped her neck like that.
And the one thing that really, it goes back to, again, the characters not really, except for Cindy not being real smart, is how did she think she was going to get through the little doggy door? There's no way she would have been able to slip through.
So what she should have done, well, obviously she was screwed though, because that door was locked, remember?
Yeah.
So that door going back in the house was locked. I would have pounded on it. Like, she didn't pound on it. Like, I would have been pounding with my fist as hard as I could.
Yeah.
And I see that but remember, she also hit the garage door up, and it went up a little bit, and then he went down. So I
would have split in.
Her chance to go slide to try to at least, because, and that's the other thing. With garage doors now, they have that sensor. So if there's anything that sensed like coming down, it'll back
stop.
Up. Yeah. So there's a little bit of loopholes in that, but I try to.
Well, technically speaking, this is set in the 90s before they had garage doors that do that.
Garage door sensors, yeah. But it's the whole thing. The thing that really just the whole thing was the weight. I don't think that weight would never be up there.
Yeah, I totally understand that. So then, I'm probably skipping a lot, but Billy and Cindy go up. Huh?
We'll tie it together. I'm not worried about it.
Yeah. So Billy and Cindy end up going up and having sex after Randy told you not to.
Yeah.
And what's funny is right after they get done, she realizes that something's kind of off with Billy because the phone records and all that stuff. So kind of ties in with who's the killer. And then immediately after, the Ghostface killer runs in.
Well, because that's the thing. I'll tie that in. It's because of the fact that she is questioning when he got his one call. Who did he call? And he was like, well, I called my dad, but the dad is the one that ended up calling him. So that's where we see a loophole in Billy Loomis's story. So Skeet Ulrich comes up with the thing. Well, I called him, but he didn't answer or whatever. So basically now I think Sydney's a smart enough character. She sees the loophole in Billy Loomis's story. So now we're starting to raise our, we're starting to get aware of possible situation that would make Billy Loomis the possible Ghostface killer. And I like that scene there because it really shows you the smarts of a character in a horror movie. Sydney, I think, is one of the smarter characters in movie genres. I feel because she's just so she's so with it. She's so on point with things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And she's very intuitive, and I think that really shows a lot for Neve Campbell's character in the film.
Oh yeah, and all the while you have Gail and Kenny outside. They have the tape running, but it's on a 30-second delay, which will play into towards the end.
Yeah, because when Gail went into the party, she puts a little camcorder right smack in the middle of the party where they're watching Halloween. And so now she can kind of go back out into the van with Kenny and kind of neb nose, so to speak, out to see what the heck's going on in the party.
Yeah, but they're on a 30-second delay. So then we are, hold on one second. So then Cindy escapes the house after the killer stabs Billy. She goes to the camera truck or whatever, the news truck.
Yeah.
Gets help from Kenny. Kenny comes out and gets his throat slit.
Yeah,
No more Kenny.
That's because of the 30-second delay, because Kenny sees that the door's open in the front door, and he's like, well, crap, it's not open yet on this feed. And then he realizes, oh, crap, somebody like you see the Ghostface killer walking out the door, or like walking towards the front door. So you're like, crap, he could be anywhere. And then boom, he's right there, slits Kenny's throat, and yeah.
Yeah.
And then we see that's when Sydney's she kind of like she hightails back into the van, and she crawls out the back of the van, and she runs away.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Dewey's off with Gail. They went to go investigate. They went to go try to find Sydney's dad's vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're doing. So
yeah, because they still think that her father is the killer because it's the anniversary of his wife's death, his wife's murder. He wasn't at the hotel he said he was. He was supposedly going out of town. So everything kind of points towards that direction.
And it's such a beautiful storyline just because of the fact you think it, because you're like, well, he's not in the story. Where the heck is this guy at? Mm-hmm. Is he trying to hide something? He's the perfect person, obviously. It's a callback again with Randy saying that, Sydney's dad's the red herring, and you're going to pretty much think that it's him because there's all the signs are pointing to him. Yes, they found out that the calls were coming from Sydney's dad's phone, so you already have suspicion there. You already have suspicion because the character hasn't been in the film very long, so he obviously could do the killing because we don't see him, so it makes sense that he could be a killer.
Yeah. So they're all pointing towards that. And then, let's see where we are. Cindy returns to the house, and Billy is rolling down the stairs because he's, I guess, still alive.
Yeah, because Ghostface apparently stabbed him, so he's injured at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that's where the whole
reveal comes out, pretty much.
Yep.
That's where, you see Billy pretty much licking his blood or whatever, saying it's corn.
Dewey first.
What's that?
He shoots Dewey first.
He shoots Dewey first, yeah, because Dewey comes in, he shoots Dewey, and then is the big reveal about the blood is basically it's corn syrup. And again, it's a callback to another famous movie, Carrie. So yeah, another
callback,
paying homage to another horror classic. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then Cindy runs into Stu, and she's like, "Help me!" And then he has the voice modifier. He's like, "What a surprise, Cindy."
Yeah, or what? Wait, or was it was Billy? I thought Stu was the one that had the
yeah, voice. Stu had the voice modifier.
Yeah, never mind. I thought you said Billy.
No, like she runs into Stu, says "Help me" from Billy, and then Stu has the voice.
Yeah, he goes surprise, and then you realize, oh shit, it's both of them now.
Yeah,
obviously that Stu and Billy are working together, and
that's how they could be in two separate places at once.
Because if you notice, you go back and watch it, you never see Stu and Billy together. You never see, or there's always a scene where if something happens, Billy comes running in right after, or Stu comes running in back after. They're never together in the same scene, and it makes sense. You rewatch it. Wes Craven was really pretty brilliant in that aspect. Just because you rewatch it, it's just kind of like The Sixth Sense with M. Night Shyamalan, with like he's dead the whole time. You watch it, you look back at it, you're like, shit, yeah, and you look back at Scream, you're like, yeah.
Everything
yeah,
ties together at the end.
Yeah, Billy and Stu are never in the same scene, or if they are, that's when obviously nothing's going on, nothing's happening, and it's always when one of them disappears that things start to happen with Ghostface Killer. So now it all makes sense. The pieces of the puzzle, finally, we're starting to get some more pieces of the puzzle connected, and we're starting to finally understand what the hell's going on.
Yeah, and then that's when they bring out the dad who they tied up, said they were going to frame him for her murder, say that he went, psycho.
Yeah, which really doesn't make much sense. Like, obviously, if it's a 1 year anniversary of your wife's death, you're not going to sit there and you're going to mourn. You're not going to sit there and do the opposite of that, take other people's lives. You know what I mean? I get that they want to do that. They want to set that up to where it's a revenge thing. It's more of like he hit his breaking point and he went nuts and snapped and killed people. I think that's what they wanted to paint that scene. They wanted to kind of go that image with Sydney's dad.
Yeah, and they said he at the end of his spree he murdered Cindy and then shot himself in the head.
But it's perfect the way that they were going to frame him. The way Billy and Stu said that they were going to frame him worked because they had the voice recorder on him. They had the burner phone that all the phone, everything that, all the phone call records would show that phone was the one that called. He was already in
he was a prime suspect.
He was in everybody's eye anyway. They said that, he was gone. He never checked in the hotel. And obviously in the whole entire film, you don't see him. So you obviously, us as the audience and police authorities in the film are already suspecting him anyway because of the fact that he has so many fingers pointing at him that this guy's the killer. So it was a beautiful way to potentially frame him, and obviously that goes foiled. But it was a smart storyline that Wes Craven went with there.
Yep, and then Cindy asks for a motive, which then goes into one of the greatest lines in a horror movie, where he's like, "Did Norman Bates have a motive? Nope. Did they ever find out why Hannibal Lecter loved to eat people? Don't think so."
Yeah.
He goes, "It's more scary when they don't have a motive, Cindy."
And that is true, because when you get a backstory of a character, and that's even with Halloween, you really didn't get a motive. Obviously, you got a backstory with Rob Zombie's.
Oh God.
About his childhood, which I did like in that aspect. It was nice to see the childhood of Michael Myers. But in the same token, though, when we're introduced to the 1978 film, we just see Michael Myers just picking off people. Obviously he goes nuts, kills his sister and stuff like that, but we don't see anything else. Like, we don't know what the hell happened, what drove him to do this. We just know that this guy's crazy. And I think that is more scarier when you're just acting. You don't have a reason to act, you're just doing. And I think that's scarier.
Yeah, and then he kind of does have a motive at the end, which he ties around. He's like, he was like, "It wasn't Cotton that killed your mother, it was me." Yeah, he framed Cotton, and the reason was because her mom had an affair with his dad, which made his mom walk out.
So now obviously he had resentment in that. It was because of Sydney's mom that Billy's mom and dad pretty much split apart, and so there's resentment there. And obviously that's what better way to call into question, obviously, by killing Sydney's mom, which they kind of obviously confessed to doing a year prior. So I mean, it all makes sense. It all makes sense. Even the beginning scene where where Billy is sneaking into Sydney's room, that's fresh right out of him killing Casey, because the dad comes in and says, "Oh, I heard screaming." So obviously, I'm thinking they live relatively close by. I'm guessing maybe to.
You think? No, because
remember she said. Remember at the beginning of the film, the dad said that he swore he could hear screaming. I wonder if it was Casey's parents. Remember when the mom was screaming?
I don't think so. I think it was when Billy jumped through the window. He scared Sydney. Skinny screamed, and then that's what he heard. Because
because to me, I was wondering. Well, because I knew nobody obviously lived by Casey Becker. It was just one of those things I thought, well, that could make sense too, timeline wise, because obviously we see Billy's character. Obviously, I don't think drives or anything like that. So he was walking. And I'm thinking, well, shit, he could have walked there after.
No, he drives. He drives because in the movie, when the cop is talking to him, he was like, "Did you drive by Casey's house on the way to meet Cindy?"
Yeah, but he didn't have his car though. I thought, because remember, I thought he snuck. Then he might have drove, but we didn't see it, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay, so where I was thinking was the fact that he didn't drive. So I'm thinking, well, fuck, he could have walked.
Oh, I see.
See what I'm saying? He could have walked after he killed Casey, walked over to Sydney's after. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's why I was trying to, that's why I was kind of trying to place it together.
But I don't think that's the case because I could have swore that they said that Casey lived in the middle of nowhere. Like she was out in the woods, like
yeah. Well,
no
yeah,
one around her.
well, because we're led to believe that because when they said about calling 911 or something like that, he said the cops would take a while to get there. So we obviously know that she's not around a lot of people.
Hmm.
But to me, I was thinking, well, shit, I wonder if they were. I just was wondering, like,
Yeah.
where I was thinking out storyline with them potentially being close, within close vicinity, and the scream that the dad heard was potentially the mom screaming at the, when she saw her daughter outside. That's kind of where I was thinking at with it because as soon as they pan to shoot to her, you see her typing, and she really didn't scream loud when Billy came in. Is the thing. That's why when he comes in and says, "Oh, I swear I heard screaming," I'm thinking maybe he heard them. That's just
The only thing that I could think about that was he was on his way to the room and then heard Cindy scream.
Yeah, that's potentially probably it. But you see where I was thinking at with that.
Yeah, I got you. So then after it's revealed, they just start stabbing each other, which was a very gruesome scene.
Yeah, because they're just basically trying now to set it up as they were attacked by obviously Sydney's dad.
They were the heroes of the story,
the supposed killer, and they're going to rise and be the heroes of the story, and everything's going to be perfect. They take turns stabbing each other back and forth.
Which Stu, I think Stu said you cut me too deep. So like he legit like got deep into it.
Went too far because they were so pumped up in the moment that
on adrenaline.
They weren't really thinking about it, and that's obviously when Billy stabbed. And I love some of those scenes where, like, Stu's like, "I'm woozy, man. I'm a little woozy.
I'm woozy, man."
And then he throws the phone. Remember, he throws the phone and hits Stu in the back of the head.
He goes, "Hit me with a phone, will you, dipshit?"
But yeah, it's the ending of the film. Everything it pays off, and it ties everything together.
And then that's when Gail comes in. I believe she's the one who tries to shoot.
Gail shoots. Doesn't Gail shoot? No. Gail shoots. Yeah. Doesn't Gail shoot Billy?
Gail at first tries to shoot Billy. Safety's on.
The safety, that's before. Remember, that's before. That was before when he was trying to kill her. She comes back in, though. He's already on the ground.
Yeah, but I'm trying to like tie it in a bit. Like,
oh, yeah, okay. Yeah.
So Gail comes in, tries to shoot Billy. Safety's on. I think he hits her with the end of the gun, goes to shoot her, and then Cindy escapes into the house, saying that. And what's cool about this is she takes the voice modifier too.
Yeah.
So she's calling, like, using the voice modifier, and she's like somewhere in the house.
Yeah, which is hilarious. My parents are so mad.
That's the best. That's
you called the police.
You bet your ass I did. My mom and dad are gonna be so mad.
Yeah, but like I said, it's one of those movies. The hour and 50 minutes, good.
They surprisingly go by really a little bit slow. Huh?
Yeah, there's a couple scenes that go. I mean, the film is just it's such an important staple for horror films. It's a callback to the older films, like I said, from the 70s and 80s. The simplicity of it, the simplicity of Halloween, the simplicity of Nightmare on Elm Street, and it's basically you had your Halloween in the 70s, you had your Elm Street in the 80s, and Friday the 13th in the 80s, and then you have your Scream in the 90s. It paves the way for a new generation of horror films, and that's why the movie's just so important,
And this is where the idea of like a mass serial killer really started in the 90s. Like,
and that mask was huge after that. I remember even for Halloween we had to have it.
Yeah, and I mean not like Michael Myers or whatever, like real human serial killers in mass. That's when that kind of era started.
Yeah, but it was and even like robbing stores or doing anything, they always had to have Halloween masks on and stuff like that. And this film really just catapulted pop culture, and even in and I said even like the horror film genre in general really just helped catapult it and really make it more relevant, which was great because at the time, like I had always said, I believe I said that in our horror movies of the whatever the best horror movies or whatever we were talking about before.
It was like 90s to today.
Right? Yeah, but you figure in the 80s you had a couple you had a couple series going. You obviously had. You had your Nightmare on Elm Street, obviously originating. Like majority of their stuff came out in the 80s. You had Friday the 13th, which damn near all their stuff came out in the 80s. I believe all their stuff came out in the 80s. Yeah,
Almost all of them.
Except Jason Goes to Hell and Jason X. All that stuff, even because Part 8 was 89. Yeah, so all that stuff was in the 80s. All 8 of those Jason movies. So you had literally, it was like almost kind of what Saw was to the 2000s. Then you had even the Halloween sprinkled in majority. Well, it was 78, but then the sequels came out in the 80s. And obviously, so you had the 80s with the Halloween, you had 80s with Nightmare on Elm Street, you had 80s with Friday the 13th. We needed a new face for the 90s, and what perfect way to do it than put Scream in the mix, a callback to celebrate what was and a celebrate to what we could do in the future in the horror movies. And I think that was a big staple for 1996. I really think
without doubt
it was a game changer because we really didn't have a whole lot of. There was some horror films from the 90s, but you think back to one that had more of an impact than Scream. I challenge that because you can't. The Wes Craven really helped bring the horror genre back, because I think in the 90s we were topping off. We were seeing Jason Goes to Hell. We were seeing the end of that, which they obviously teased Freddy versus Jason right there at the end of that film.
Yep. I think we also had A New Nightmare around that time too, around late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, A New Nightmare came out in the 90s. Yeah. Okay, so A New Nightmare, and then A New Nightmare was the one, but there was only one Jason movie from the 90s. Jason Goes to Hell in 93. But then that's when we were big on riding the Freddy vs. Jason. We were busy for the crossover. We wanted to see that, and that didn't obviously happen for another 10 years.
Yep.
Which is crazy. It was crazy. They teased in 93. It didn't end up happening until 2003. I mean, 03 or 04. 04, I think, is when it happened.
04, yeah.
No, 03. I wasn't 21 yet. I'm pretty sure it was 03 for Freddy vs. Jason.
Maybe it was. Maybe it was like 03.
It was. It had to have been. It was summer of 03. Let me go back. Let me go back and double check that.
So then, at the end of the movie, Gail shoots Billy, and one of the best deaths is Stu's death when she shoots him and then throws the TV on top of him.
Oh yeah. Or for Stu's death, yeah.
I wonder if that was like a callback to A Nightmare on Elm Street where he puts the girl's head through the TV.
It could have been, because that was a way to kill somebody back then too. That Craven used. I don't think Craven directed that one, but
no.
I remember that scene, and then I liked the scene with Billy at the end where Randy's giving that whole spiel about in horror movies the killer always comes back from one last scare, and then you see Billy go ha, and then you see him get shot right in the head. You see Sidney shoot him right in the head, square right in the head.
She goes, "Not in my movie."
Not in my movie, and bam. And the other thing I wanted to talk about real quick was another thing that I thought was funny. I believe there was a scene where they were talking about who would play them if they were in a film.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I believe Sidney said Tori Spelling, and Tori Spelling was definitely playing her in the beginning of Scream 2. I'm pretty sure.
Really?
I'm pretty sure. I remember at the beginning of Scream 2, or Scream 2, or was it one of the ones Tori Spelling played? I thought
that was when the Stabbed series came in, right?
When they were spoofing Gail Weathers' book. And I'm pretty sure I remember Tori Spelling being in one of those.
Maybe she was, and if so, that's a great callback.
Well, because it paved the way. Yeah, because Tori Spelling was definitely in it. She's credited in Scream 2.
That's awesome.
I'm pretty sure she definitely played. She played somebody in it. She's credited as Tori Spelling in the film, but I'm pretty sure
she was supposed to be a Cindy type character.
Yeah, and I thought it was funny because Sydney made mention of she would want Tori Spelling to play her, because obviously Tori Spelling was big. This is back when Beverly Hills 90210 was big, and Tori Spelling was a big deal. And now
I don't really know who that is, but
her dad was Aaron Spelling, and he pretty much produced 90210. That's pretty much how Tori Spelling.
Oh, okay.
Aaron Spelling was a big TV producer, and that's pretty much how Tori Spelling got her in. And then she started the show for I think it was on for 10 years or 11 years. I think we're about 10 years.
Yeah, about 10 years.
And so she played a character Donna in 90210, but that was how she was big in the 90s. So that's why she's kind of well known to people like us, because we kind of grew up with that, as opposed to you're younger. So I mean, you wouldn't have caught that, but that hit me when I heard Tori Spelling because I remember her in Scream 2. So I thought that was kind of funny.
So then, so after Billy gets shot in the Not In My Movie, which is such a badass line to end off on.
Yeah.
So that's when the movie ends. You have Gail Weathers doing the close off, pretty much recapping what happened at the house, and that's when the credits start rolling.
Yeah. And we could have ended it here. We really could have ended the whole entire series here, and it would have been complete. To me, it would have been fine. You have your story. Everything's closed. You've tied up all the loose ends. Everything's perfect. So you really didn't need a Scream 2 or 3 or 4. But
Scream made a hell of a lot of money, though.
Yes. I mean, Scream made a buku bucks. And I remember, like I said, seeing it in the theater was different than seeing it on VHS at the time and then DVD. It's just because of the fact that, you're submersed in the atmosphere. And that's why I always say the theater experience is the way to experience movies. Because I remember being so scared seeing that film because I was on edge because it was loud and those loud jump scenes. And then you watch it on TV, like when you own it, it's like, it's not it's more scarier when you're surrounded by it.
Yeah. I just wish I was old enough to have watched in the theaters.
Yeah,
who hasn't? It scared the crap out of me when I was younger.
Yeah, you'll have to see it sometime it's different then because it's still not it wouldn't be your first viewing of it. I really wish you could experience that. I wish I could show you. My experiences could somehow you could kind of.
Though, like I have a pretty kick-ass entertainment system with like a 50-inch TV and like a sound bar. So I turned that shit all the way up, watched it late at night. There you go.
But yeah, it was a treat. And I was the perfect age for it. Like I said, I was 13 when it came out, and I think it was a perfect age for that film. And it was, it's a film that always sticks with me. My group of friends, we were really gravitated towards that series. And I think that's why Scream always has a spot in my heart for it, because it was one of those films that we always like talked about, watched together and stuff like that.
All right, so we missed a whole bunch, but that's as far as we're gonna go with the spoilers. So give your closing thoughts and then a rating.
I gave it. It's a 5 out of 5. This is a benchmark for the horror genre in the 90s. Like I've been going on and on about it. It was important. The horror genre needed this. Wes Craven revitalized it, mainstreamed it. Kind of passed down what happened in the 70s and 80s, kind of passed the baton for a new generation to enjoy horror movies, to give Hollywood ideas to where to take the horror genre. And this movie's very epic. It's at the epicenter of the 90s and at the epicenter of the horror genre in general. And just everything about it. The movie still works 22 years later. And yes, there's some flaws here and there. Yes, the whole, garage door scene. Yes, this and that. You can nitpick any movie, though. This still holds up. It's a damn good film. There's still good acting. There's solid acting all around. From Nev Campbell's excellent in the film. David Arquette, Courtney Cox, Skeet Ulrich, Matthew Lillard, Jamie Kennedy, blah, blah, blah. You go on and on. This movie, it works. It's fun. It works. And it's something that, I'll constantly revisit around the Halloween season. I constantly watch it. It's just a classic. It's a 1996 classic for sure.
Mm-hmm. So, I haven't watched this movie in a while up till this point, but going back and watching it again, it still holds up today. It's a perfect slasher horror comedy in a way, because there's a lot of great comedy in this movie too, from whether it's Ghostface like tripping up or like get hit with the beer bottles or whatever. There's a lot of great comedy to kind of counteract the darkness and horror of the movie. This movie is perfect. I'm giving it a 5 out of 5 also. Everything Russ said more. It's the movie that got me into horror movies, and now I'm a horror movie junkie. Like, yeah. I love horror movies, my favorite genre, and it started right here with Scream. So let's go out and get your plugs. Russ, where can people find you?
Yeah, YouTube, House Hollywood Reviews. I do movie reviews, trailer reactions, all that fun stuff. Also, my buddy Chance Ellison and I, obviously from the Schmodown fame now, we have a podcast together, Notorious by Chance. If you guys haven't already, go ahead, subscribe to that. Join our YouTube or join our Facebook page. You guys can vote on pretty much anything that we pretty much discuss. We just recorded the episode 4 worst horror sequel. Texas Chainsaw: The Next Generation won handedly.
How was that?
By a couple votes. The movie was awful. We have a special coming up, Chance's favorite scary movie coming up, and then we have another poll, and then I believe my favorite scary movie, and then we have another poll. So yeah, definitely get on board with that. Check it out for sure. Get on and vote, man. It's fun. It's fun to see what you guys want us to talk about. So anytime I can help talk about movies, play movie trivia, anything I can do to do movies, I'm always down to help. So I was glad that we could do this.
Oh yeah. And of course, check out that podcast. It's a lot of fun. I watch every single episode. And also, if you guys enjoyed this, hit that like button, subscribe from Nerd TV below, hit that bell icon, and join the Nerd Squad today. If you are a fan of pro wrestling, check out myself and Nico Suave Regoli's podcast, The Week of Wrestling. New episodes every Saturday on wherever podcasts are sold. Thank you guys for joining us tonight, and we'll see you next week with another Halloween horror review. Peace.